A big break. Republicans breaking with Trump on Epstein. House GOP leaders bracing tonight for a significant number of Republican defections. Republicans going to break from Trump and support a bipartisan bill calling for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Trump not helping his cause here, ignoring questions today about why his name appears in newly released Jeffrey Epstein emails thousands of times.
Sir, any response to the Epstein emails that mention your name?
Silence. But it was thousands of times his name was included in new emails. And those emails, by the way, are only a fraction of the actual, still unreleased Epstein files, which all leads to the most basic, fundamental question. It is a glaring question. Why is Trump acting like a person desperately trying to hide something? After all, when Trump didn't have the power to release the Epstein files, he said he was all for them being made public.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would. I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Well, he's got a big problem with it. He now has the power to follow through. And now, instead, he's called the whole situation a hoax again and again and again and again and again. He said that anyone supporting the files release is engaged in a quote-unquote hostile act to his administration. And he said that any Republican willing to vote for the files release is dumb and stupid. Why? It makes absolutely no sense. And we're not the only ones asking these questions. Listen to MAGA stalwart Megyn Kelly.
Why didn't Trump just release these? Just release them. Just release them, right? Like now he's in a position of being like singled out as the only one, allegedly, as opposed to one of a slew of names. The Democrats, of course, are going to make a ton of hay over it. And I don't know that there's any there whatsoever, but I concede that they sound bad. They don't sound good.
And what she's talking about there is just that 20,000 pages of emails, right, that include Trump's name thousands of times. They make it sound like Epstein and Trump were very close for a very long time. Now, we know there was a period of time that they were essentially best friends. Many have described them that way to us. But even a whole decade after Trump said he dumped Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for being a, quote, creep, these emails were being sent around. A lot of really important people still going to Epstein for advice about Trump. One example is in June of 2018, weeks before Trump's first big official summit with Putin. Epstein emails a former top European official offering help, writing, quote, I think you might suggest to Putin that Lavrov can get insight on talking to me. Vitaly Churkin used to, but he died. Now, Churkin had been the longest serving Russian ambassador to the United Nations. Kristen Holmes is at the White House to begin our coverage tonight. And Kristen, something that, months ago, certainly at the beginning of the summer, right, when Trump denied that his own DOJ had told him his name was in the Epstein files, a day that he probably didn't think would ever come. House GOP seeming to flee from him. Leaders there bracing for a big number of Republicans to break from Trump, vote to release the Epstein files. How concerned is Trump about this?
Well, the White House is watching it very closely. I mean, what we know right now is that Speaker Johnson today essentially did a reverse course. The White House and the Speaker's office have been working together to try and stop this bill from actually being taken up for a vote. Then all of a sudden you see Speaker Johnson saying that he's going to expedite it. It's going to be brought to the floor as early next week. We are told that President Trump and Speaker Johnson discussed this together, and essentially it was made clear to the president by both Speaker Johnson as well as several advisors that this was the inevitable, that this had to move forward and that there was no reason in stopping it, just get it over with. And President Trump seems to have conceded that idea. So while you're hearing him say these things about people being dumb or going against the wishes of the administration, there is a really real belief here at the White House that this is going to pass through the GOP House. Now, of course, the big question is what happens then when it lands in the GOP-led Senate? Yeah. What is the White House going to do? Are they going to take issue with senators? Are they going to personally whip senators? And I'm told that the decision has not yet been made on what their strategy is going to be once they do believe that this passes through the House and lands in the Senate, because there is also a resignation, an understanding among many White House officials that there's really not much they can do to stop this momentum, that there are senators as well as House members who have said that this is something they want, and it is going to be something that they vote to move forward forward, the release of these documents. So again, the White House is watching all of this very closely. That will then lead to, if it does pass in the Senate, this landing on President Trump's desk. And I'm told that that's not even part of the discussion right now. All the discussion is what they're going to do in the next steps when this goes through the House, which they believe that it will. I have talked to a number of his allies, people on the outside who have defended President Trump for years, who support him, who still support him. But a lot of them sound like Megyn Kelly. They have a lot of questions as to why the White House is not getting ahead of this. One reason I'm told is that President Trump himself is dictating all of the response to this, and that is part of the reason that you're seeing it as a much more reactive response, because that is what he wants.
Yeah, well, and it is, of course, something when people take a step back and say, why would anyone not want to put out the files of a pedophile and who knew and who aided and who participated, right? I mean, people don't want to be on the wrong side of that one, and it's obvious the right side. Kristen, thank you very much. As we, I think Kristen pointing out the crucial question, right? What will happen if it gets through the Senate and gets to Trump's desk? Well, Stacey Williams is out front now. She is a former Sports Illustrated model who dated Epstein in the early 1990s. She was one of the first people to come on this show and make it clear that Epstein and Trump, in your words, Stacey, were quote unquote best friends. And so many others, after you said that, talked about the closeness of their relationship over many years. We heard it again and again from others who knew them after you spoke. And Stacey also went public in 2024 with accusations that Trump groped her in 1993 in front of Epstein at Trump Tower. Allegations, of course, Trump has denied. Stacey, I really appreciate your taking the time and coming on tonight. Obviously, the Epstein files are one thing, and they're still under lock and seal. These emails, though, from the Epstein estate that include Trump's name in them thousands of times have gotten even more GOP members to say it's time for them to jump ship with Trump on this one and vote for the release of the files. Did you ever think you'd see this happen?
That Republicans are supporting the release of the files?
Yeah.
Well, we've had a few, right? I've never understood the sort of the role of legislative officials in protecting pedophiles. I didn't think that was part of the job criteria. So it's been very confusing to me. But if some of them are finally arriving at some moral clarity, that's a good thing. Transparency is critical. And I was quite shocked to hear the White House say yesterday that they're being fully transparent after dragging a member of Congress there to get her to pull back her vote on releasing the Epstein files. It's condescending to the American people, and it is cruel and damaging to the Epstein survivors.
Yes, and I know you're obviously talking about Lauren Boebert there, who has remained steadfast in her decision to vote for the release of the files.
I commend her. Yes.
Yeah, under incredible pressure.
Yeah.
In the emails that we have, and again, every time I say that, I just want to distinguish that these emails are from the estate, so they are Epstein files or something different. But the emails themselves reveal a lot of information, Stacey. They talk about the close relationship, wingman type relationship that Trump and Epstein had, which you've talked about when you talked about how they were best friends during the time that you knew them. This is a video I'm showing of from NBC that shows Trump and Epstein at a party in Mar-a-Lago. It's all the way back in 1992, an important year for you, Stacey, because that's the year you met Epstein. And what they're doing in that video is watching women on the dance floor, and Trump appears to say to Epstein, "She's hot," referring to a woman. They're then pointing fingers. Now, in one of the emails that we have in the context of that video, Epstein says he gave Trump one of his girlfriends. He writes, "My 20-year-old girlfriend in 93 that after 2 years I gave to Donald." Now, by the way, you met him in 1992. When you see that, though, in this email in black and white, I quote unquote gave to Donald, what's your reaction?
I mean, it screams about, the mindset of these men. The same two men who did what they did to me when Jeffrey Epstein walked me into Donald Trump's office to be groped by him. Clearly, we are these objects, these trophies, and it's deeply misogynistic.
So let me get this straight. The man who spent years screaming about draining the swamp, the guy who promised total transparency, the self-proclaimed champion of law and order, is now having a complete meltdown because his own party, his own Republicans won't release files about Jeffrey Epstein. You know Jeffrey Epstein, right? The convicted pedophile, the guy whose name is synonymous with the worst kind of evil. Yeah, those files. And here's the kicker. The Trump's names appears 1,000 times in the emails already released, not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. So today we're going to talk about what happens when even your most loyal soldiers finally draw a line in the sand, when protecting a man becomes more politically toxic than defying him, and why this might be the first real crack in Trump's iron grip over the GOP. Because friends, when Republicans start choosing transparency over Trump, something has fundamentally shifted. I want us to get into this thing. So here's what makes this story so beautiful, tragically predictable. It follows the exact pattern we've seen time and time again with Trump, and I want you to really sit with this timeline because it's a masterclass in political opportunism. When we had no power, right? Back when Trump wasn't president, when he was just another guy tweeting from Mar-a-Lago, he was all about releasing these files. He said, and I quote, inclined to declassify them. He had no problem with it. He was all for them being made public. Classic move, right? It's easy to support transparency when you're not the one holding the keys. It's performative courage. It's virtue signaling for the MAGA base who love the idea of exposing elite pedophile rings. Now, right now that he's back in the White House, now that he actually has authority to release these documents with a single executive order, suddenly it's a hoax. Suddenly anyone who supports releasing these files is engaging in a hostile act against his administration. Suddenly, Republicans who vote for transparency are dumb and stupid. Do you see the playbook here? When it was politically convenient, he was the hero. When it became personally inconvenient, he became the victim. Okay, let us talk about this. You know, just when this controversy is reaching peak temperature, new emails get released from the Epstein estate. About 20,000 pages worth, and guess whose name is showing up 1,000 times? Not Bill Clinton, though I'm sure his name is in there too, and he should be investigated as thoroughly. Not Prince Andrews, right? Donald J. Trump appears there. The emails paint a picture of two men who, according to multiple witnesses, essentially best friends for years, a wingman type relationship of the documents describe it, right? So Stacey Williams, a former Sports Illustrated model who dated Epstein in the early 90s, he was one of the first people to publicly state how close they were. She's also accused Trump of dropping her in front of Epstein in 1993, an allegation Trump denies naturally, right? But here's what makes this even more damning. Even a decade after Trump supposedly dumped Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for being a creep, which is Trump's official story, the emails show that in 2018, important people were still going to Epstein for advice about how to deal with Trump. In June 2018, right before Trump's summit with Putin, Epstein emailed a former top European official offering to provide insights on Trump. He literally positioned himself as Trump whisperer. So either Trump's story about cutting ties is a lie, or Epstein was so deeply embedded in Trump's world that even after the alleged falling out, he was still seen as a valuable source of intelligence about the president of the United States. Right? Neither option looks good. Now, here's this story where this story gets really interesting, because what we are witnessing is something incredible rare in the Trump era. Republicans breaking ranks in large numbers, right? The House of GOP leaders were reportedly bracing for significant Republican defections. These ain't just usual suspects like Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney, Republicans who've already been excommunicated from MAGA church. These are regular House Republicans who've mostly stayed in line. They are looking at this issue and making a calculation. You know what? I'd rather face Trump's wrath than be on the record protecting a pedophile's secrets. And that's the moral clarity that's been missing from the GOP, right, for years. Finally, there is an issue where enough Republicans are saying this is the line. This is where I get off the train, right? Speaker Johnson's 180. Perhaps the most revealing moment was Speaker Mike Johnson's complete reversal. Johnson was who had been working with the White House to try to stop this bill from even getting a vote, suddenly changed course. He announced he will expedite the bill to the floor. Why? Because he spoke to Trump and Trump advisors, and they made it clear that this fight was unwinnable. The momentum was too strong. Too many Republicans were jumping ship. The advisors told Trump it was inevitable and had to move forward. So Trump definitely conceded. And I want that to sink in. The man who never backs down, who fights every battle to the bitter end, who sees compromise as weakness, conceded. Because even he could see the political math, there is no defending this position, right? So this is not just Republicans. There is a genuinely bipartisan effort here. Democrats and Republicans working together. I know it feels like a fever dream to demand transparency, and the White House knows they are losing. Internal sources say there is not much they can do to stop this momentum. They believe the bill will pass the House. It might even pass the Senate. And this is so unprecedented. Trump has controlled the GOP with an iron fist for nearly a decade. He's ended political careers with a single tweet. He's turned the party into a cult of personality. But apparently, even cult leaders have limits, and those limits are pedophile files. Now, let us talk about why Trump is so desperate to keep these files buried, because the emails that have been released, and remember, these are just a fraction of what's out there, paint an absolutely naming picture, right? So, one email from Epstein talks about his 20-year-old girlfriend in 1993. He writes, and I'm quoting here, after 2 years, I gave to Donald and back. I gave to Donald. Let that phrase roll around in your brain for a second. He gave her like she was property, like she was a car or a watch that you loaned to a friend. Stacey Williams responded to these revelations by saying, the mindset revealed in these emails screams that women were viewed as objects or trophies. It reflects, in her words, a deeply misogynistic worldview. And if you think this is just about words, remember this. There is actual video from 1992 showing Trump and Epstein together at Mar-a-Lago watching women on the dance floor. You can see Trump lean over and apparently say she's hot. Two men surveying women like livestock, rating them, objectifying them, right? So this is the culture these files document. This is the world Trump and Epstein inhabited together when they were still friends, definitely. Now, the political leverage, it's not about the misogyny, though that alone should be disqualifying. It is about what Epstein knew and how he used it, right? The emails show Epstein offering political insights to powerful people. He was positioning himself as someone who understood Trump, who could predict him, who could maybe even influence him. Why would a convicted sex offender have that kind of access to political power? What exactly did Epstein know? What did he have on people? These are the questions that the full files might answer, and that's why Trump is terrified. These people are best friends, right? So I want to understand this. Multiple witnesses have described Trump and Epstein as best friends during a significant period, and the volume of correspondence, thousands of mentions, support this characterization. Now, Trump's defenders will say, so what? Lots of powerful people knew Epstein. Bill Clinton flew on his plane. Bill Gates met with him. And you know what? They are right, and all of those connections should be investigated. Everyone who was close to Epstein should be scrutinized. Now, no one gets a pass. But here's the difference. None of those other people are currently trying to block the release of these files. None of them are calling it a hoax. None of them are threatening their own party members for supporting transparency. Trump is. And that behavior tells you everything you need to know, right? So why now why are Republicans finally finding their spines on this issue? Okay, let us talk about the moral clarity here. Some analysts are saying Republicans are finally arriving at this as a moral clarity that protecting pedophiles is not part of the job criteria for legislative officials. And sure, I'd love to believe in this redemption. I'd love to believe that GOP politicians suddenly remember they have consciences. But let me offer a more cynical and probably more accurate interpretation. Let us talk about the political survival argument. Republicans are breaking with Trump because defending him on this issue is political suicide. Think about the optics. The Democrats are already preparing their attack ads. Senator X voted to hide files about a pedophile. Why? What are they afraid that the American people will learn? There is no good answer to that question. There is no spin that makes you look good. You're either on the side of transparency or on the side of covering up for Epstein's associates. It's binary, right? It's clear and it's devastating. Then there is the suburban voter problem. Republicans are also looking at the electoral math. They're looking at the suburban voters, especially suburban moms who have been drifting away from the party. You know what really alienates suburban voters? Looking like you are protecting pedophiles. They'll move away. They'll run away. And this is not some absent policy debate about tax rates or healthcare. This is visceral. This is primal. Every patient watching the story understands the stakes. And Republicans know that if they're seen as Trump's shield on this issue, they are tossed in 2026. Trump's declining leverage right now. Okay. And this is the broader dynamic at play. Trump's public leverage is weakening, and we know that. He won in 2024, yes, last year, but he's term limited now. He can't run again in 2028, which means Republicans are already starting to think about the post-Trump GOP. They're asking themselves, do I really want to tie my political future to defending this? Is Donald Trump worth sacrificing my career over Jeffrey Epstein files? Right? And increasingly, the answer is no. They won't be able to support him because he'll be out by 2028. And let me be clear about something here. I don't know what is in those unreleased files. None of us do. That's literally the point. They haven't been released. Maybe there is nothing directly incriminating about Trump. Maybe his name appears thousands of times simply because Epstein was obsessed with name dropping. Maybe their relationship was less intimate than it appears. But here are the questions that won't go away. Why the hypocrisy, right? Number one, if Trump truly has nothing to hide, why did his position change the moment he gained the power to release the files? Why was he all for it when he was powerless, but now calls it a hoax when he's president? The flip-flop itself is damning, all right? It suggests that his previous support for transparency was performative, just another lie to feed the base. Question number two, why the silence then? Trump is not a man known for his restraint. When accused, he attacks. When when questioned, he explodes. He tweets in all caps. He goes on Fox News. He holds press conferences. But when asked about why his name appears 1,000 times in Epstein emails, there is silence, and it's deafening. The silence is deafening. Of course, it's out of character. That is almost confirmed there is something he doesn't want to discuss. Question number three, and the last one: why the threats? Why is Trump threatening Republicans who support transparency? Why is he calling them dumb and stupid? Why is he framing those as hoax and act? If this is truly a hoax with nothing behind it, why the panic? Why the threats? Why the desperate attempt to control the narrative? Innocent people don't act like this. Innocent people welcome investigations. They say, bring it on, look at everything. You'll find nothing, right? So Trump is doing the opposite here. Now, guys, as I come to the end of this video, I don't know what's in the files, I don't know what's in the emails, but everyone would like to know what will come out, and definitely know what will be the tech of these what we call these the Republicans. What are they going to say? And Democrats too on the other side, I know they'll have a say, but what are they going to say? I want you to stay locked in, stay tuned in, because I'll bring more of these updates as time goes by. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. This is the News and Show. Peace.